So now let's say you actually wanted A to be updated when we update the value here. There's actually a way to do that, and what you want to do is update the parameter to be asking for an address instead of just the value. When you write out int in a variable, normal like this, it'll only take in the value that's stored in this variable. But if we want the variable to be updated, we need to ask for the address of where this variable is being stored. So we can actually change that, and we can update this to say int star, which means pointer, and now this will accept the address of whatever variable we pass in. So now when we update it down here, it'll actually change it where the variable is stored, and when you come back to your main function, this will remain updated. So now let's fix the rest of the program. We need to update the parameter down here as well. And then down here, when we access the value, we're going to want to access it by writing out the star, or the pointer value, and then the name. And then down here, we could do pointer A equals 55. So now, when we run this line, num1, because that's what's being passed in our first parameter, which is A, will actually get updated. But we need to slightly change what we're doing here. And if you remember, the way how we use scanf is that we pass in the address when we use scanf. So the same thing here, you're going to want to put an ampersand, and the ampersand will actually pass in the address of num1, not the value. So if we run this now, Control F5, we can see that it's actually getting updated. So in this case, you could slightly update this function here. And we can now instead assign 55 to A, we can add it up and then return it back. But before we run it again, take notice that num1 was updated by this line here when we ran the code, because now it's accessing the memory of num1 and not the value. So if we press Control F5 again, we can see 55 plus 10 is equal to 65. One last example and analogy of what this is like. You can compare this to if you have a piece of paper and you draw the number 10 on it. If I'm the function and I'm asking for a parameter, having a parameter like this with no address is like you just holding up your paper and showing me the number that you wrote down. And then I'll have to write that down on my own and have a copy of your number. Where when you have a parameter like this, it's like you actually giving me the piece of paper for me to update, because that's where your value is actually being stored, is on your piece of paper.